So I think it's safe to say that for content creators, the perfect camera would be some sort of hybrid camera where you can get the greatest stills and the greatest video. Now there's no spoilers here, that camera has not been yet announced and probably never will, but we may have seen something that is pretty close and checks all the boxes for a very few amount of people, but still overall is a good camera. And of course, because the title or thumbnail already probably spoiled it, we're talking about the Canon 1DX Mark III. Now in this video, I'm going to give you 5 things that I love about this new camera, but if you want to see 5 things I really hate about this camera or strongly dislike, hate's a big word, then at the end of this video, click the thumbnail so that you can go watch that video next. And if you're coming here from that video, welcome, and I told you I wasn't just gonna trash this camera. Now this camera comes out actually next month, and so while I've tried my hardest to find any sort of sample raw footage, none of the NLE editors even support the new format. So hopefully next month, when more raw footage becomes available as people start shooting it, and hopefully they release some example footage, I'll be doing a color grading test to see how far you can actually push this footage, especially compared to like my Blackmagic 6K, RED files, RE files, and all of the sorts. So definitely stay tuned for that. But for now, here's a real quick 5 things that I really enjoy about this new camera. First off, of course, I know it's kind of petty because it's a numbers game, but 5.5K internal RAW is pretty fantastic, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. For a hybrid camera, that is a pretty high resolution, and the fact that I can record that up to 60 frames per second is also very impressive. I've been so pleased with my Blackmagic 6K at 50 frames per second that, again, 5.5K, just under that, there really is a big difference when it comes to editing with above 4K formats. I'm sure the pessimistic people are sick and tired of the argument that you can use it for editing to make it look like you have different camera angles, but here's a real quick like 5 to 10 seconds of a recent project I did where this was filmed with one camera angle, but I made cuts so quick to it that it actually looks like at least 2 or 3 different camera angles and really makes a video more engaging rather than just staying at a static shot like this where the camera's not moving. I can zoom in and out, reframe. It really is a big difference. And with that 5.5K, you basically have a wide range of resolution. So if you don't want to take up all the storage, you just don't need the resolution, or whatever your reason may be, you will have everything from basic 1080p all the way up to the 5.5K and a ton of options in between. So kudos to Canon for allowing you to use the entire sensor with that 5.5K. Although there are shooting formats that do crop the sensor, at least you have the option to do that, and it's not like the EOS R, at least originally, where it just was a 4K crop no matter what, and you didn't get the whole sensor readout. Of course, the 1D line is a complete pro user. No one's gonna argue that. So this is a pro camera, and I would say this is one of the first pro hybrid cameras. Take my Blackmagic, for example. It's a pro cinema camera, but it's not a pro stills camera. It has a stills button, but it's one of the worst things ever. Video coming soon about that. And then you have like the previous 1D cameras, which were fantastic, pretty much arguably some of the best stills camera out there. And Peter McKinnon has showed us that they're great video cameras as well, but they still made a lot of sacrifices. This one, it seems like one of the first times that a camera company has taken both categories extremely seriously. So no matter what is on the rest of my love list or my hate list, there's no doubt about it that if you truly need a hybrid camera where you equally shoot video and photos and maybe a little less care about like the video stuff, like by like 5 to 10% maybe, then this is like the perfect camera for you. So third up is that SiLog is built in. I can't believe that on other cameras they didn't have this either as a option that you had to pay extra for, kind of like Panasonic did with the GH5 and no, the 5S they built into it, but on the GH5 you had to like buy their log format. I just think that's ridiculous because for any pro video shooters, they're going to want that. And I don't know, little petty stuff like that, that's literally just like a software update. It's not like they had to do a lot extra with the camera. I don't know. It always just made me feel weird when those cameras didn't include SiLog, so kudos Canon for finally including that. Granted, it's on like their highest priced hybrid camera, but still. Also, the new processor in this thing, the actual computer brain chips and everything included into it make this an incredibly powerful camera. Now, ignoring video for a second, I remember back when I was shooting on my Nikon D800, the buffer on that thing was pretty terrible. It was like 10 or 20 things before the SD card just totally buffered out. And I've seen so many examples of this camera where people have just like pressed and held the shutter down and that thing just goes without even touching the buffer or getting anywhere close to its limits. So while you can shoot up to, I believe, 16 frames or 20 frames with the live view option per second, this thing is just gonna keep going. For any of those sports, wildlife, or any sort of action shooters out there, this is going to be incredibly useful. And for the video shooters, it's what allows them to have such high bitrate codecs, which is going to make a huge difference in the amount of detail you have in each of the videos. And finally, you have Canon's amazing dual pixel autofocus. Now, this also is partially on my hate list, so again, go watch that video in a few minutes. But I also wanted to include it on this list because that is probably the one thing that I, over time, have been jealous of when I am filming myself. It takes quite a bit of time to make sure I'm in focus, and I can't really move around unless I have, you know, a second camera operator. I don't know if anyone's going to argue that Canon has probably the best autofocus out there. It's so natural, it's not jittery at all, it's incredibly smooth, and it almost looks like you have your own first AC built into the camera. So as long as you don't go over 30 frames per second, you can have this in 4K. I haven't really seen anywhere if it has the 5.5K, the full sensor readout, if you still get the autofocus, because they only are advertising, at least any of the articles that I've read, in the 4K, 24 and 30 frames per second that you get it. So I would love to get a clarification on that. If you guys know, let me know down in the comments. But if you're shooting 4K in the cropped mode, so yeah, most likely you don't get this in 5.5K because they had to crop the sensor. If you shoot in 4K crop, then you still get that autofocus. So if you're willing to take a little bit of the resolution and quality hit, if you're vlogging or anything like that, you still have the options. And again, that's one of the greatest things about this camera is you have options. And there you go, guys. That is 5 things I absolutely love about the Canon 1DX Mark III. I really hope to get my hands on this at some point, at least the footage within the next couple weeks as we see more come out. So stay tuned for that. And don't forget to check out the 5 things I hate about this camera, because oh boy, do I have some things to rant about. But no matter what, thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to get subscribed so you don't miss any future videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.